Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Bank of the West is offering the 1% for the Planet checking account. It gives back to the planet at no cost to you, and there's no monthly service charge with any deposit per statement. Only from Bank of the West. Learn more at bankofthewest.com/1%. Additional conditions apply. Member FDIC.
The Bachelorette
and Friends.
From first love to happy ever after.
What's that?
From dating to dick pics.
Oh my. Oh no!
The Bachelorette and Friends. Oh, I love a good dick.
This podcast contains sexual references, coarse language, and adult themes from the beginning and throughout. It is not recommended for listeners under the age of 15.
Apologies up front for the funky audio in this episode. We had some technical difficulties. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Bachelorette and Friends. I'm Carla Anita Matiazzo, and to my left is the gorgeous Lainey Jameson. What's up, Lainey?
Oh, thanks for such a lovely intro, gorgeous Carla girl. Loving hanging with you.
Awesome. So today we have two delicious guests. We have Leah and we have Harry. Now, we met these two beautiful, creative, fantastical humans during the Fringe this year in 2020 at the Adelaide Fringe. Welcome, Leah and Harry.
Hi.
Thank you so much. Hi, it's so good to be here.
Thanks for coming on board. It's like a little reunion.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good.
So
I've seen
fun.
so few faces this year. Like, this is such a wonderful social experience for me.
So, Harry and Leah, I think the first time I met you was when I walked off stage and had a whinge about the scheduling being fucking out because somebody was notoriously late every day.
Which was not you guys,
Yeah,
obviously.
you know, after us. I was like, I'm so sorry, it's so late because blah, blah was really fucking late again today before me. I think that was your introduction. I'm sure you would have been like, who the fuck is this person? And what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, except that you came off looking extraordinarily glamorous. So we were like, who the fuck is this glamorous person in a dark hallway complaining about a schedule? It was wonderful.
It was so good. Like, you looked like a goddess. Like, it was so funny because it was just
totally.
like, that was my first experience with an Adelaide, like, Fringe artist. And it was just exactly the kind of energy I assumed it would be, you know?
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Harry. Leah, that's so nice. And then I think from there, because we saw each other, what, for a week or 2 weeks? What was it?
I think it was a week, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
like a week and a half, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we bonded because I was before you guys, and your play was
Oh
fantastic.
my God. Amazing. Amazing. I
Thanks.
raved to so many people about your show.
It was fantastic.
I loved it.
Well, so
Oh,
was
thank you.
yours. It was a hard act to follow. So
Yeah.
Thanks, Clovis.
Come on, baby. Yeah, I just, I think we can all, four of us can speak on our interesting experience. Look, the venue itself, like the space, I think was unique and beautiful. I really liked the aesthetics of the place. And the Yolandi, who was our tech, did you have
Amazing.
Yolandi in your
Yeah.
Yeah,
she was
good.
fucking
She's just
phenomenal.
She was amazing.
so great.
such a cool human.
Most of the tech people we had were really sweet and really kind of just like non-assuming, lovely, art-loving people. It was really cool to have them on board as our tech people, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were lovely. But unfortunately, something went down in that venue.
Did, yes.
And we nearly had to cancel our sold-out show because something got stolen, and then you guys had some stuff stolen. Yeah, it was fun.
It was a very interesting night, that one. I felt like I'd never played piano before in my life.
Oh, man.
Playing a non-weighted, I think it had 64 keys toy keyboard.
God, just,
And wasn't that the night that the reviewer was in, or someone was in?
I can't remember if it was a reviewer, but we had like a whole...
Yeah, it was.
We were over capacity, which was lovely, and we were at the point where we were like, can't... What? What?
Keeping it real, we've just got to go with this.
Yes.
Exactly. That's showbiz, baby. You just got to roll with the punches.
Yeah, and you guys were amazing too.
All my stuff was stolen, so I had to borrow the shirt of someone's back who was eating dinner in the restaurant upstairs, you know.
But the best part was in the show having to comment on Harry's outfit, which is supposed to be a bright pink outfit. And then it was one of the biggest laughs, though, we got of the evening was me commenting on his very much not exciting outfit.
Because, like, there's only so much you can really stretch the audience's imagination, you know? It wasn't going to be like, yes, this pink suit is amazing, when it's just like it's a pink double-up shirt with, like, some other pants, and I was just, like, making the best of what I had. And that made everyone laugh, so that was...
well. You did so well.
We all did the best of a very bad situation. It was really shit.
Absolutely.
But we all dealt with it. We came out of it on the other end stronger than yesterday, you know? Brittany wasn't wrong.
Yes, yeah. I just want the listeners, just want to bring them up to speed about what the podcast is about, just in case this is the first time they're listening. This podcast is based on the premise of my award-winning cabaret show, The Catch-a-Lorette. There's always a catch, where I talk and sing about my first love to what I thought was happy ever after and everything in between. So let's start with crushes. However, before we start there, I just want the listeners to note and know that Harry has an absolutely luscious beard going on.
It's amazing.
Look, Harry and Leah's long locks as well, I'm very envious of. Oh, man, the hair is just delicious on both of you.
Lockdown is nothing else but a hair incubating station, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we are a hairy pair.
Yeah. Harry McHarry.
Benefit of more time at home.
Yeah,
exactly.
Got no one to impress.
I know, right?
Us, Harry.
That's quite often what I say. It's just the cat. He won't care.
My housemates have seen me
biscuits,
worse.
He does not care.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get back to crushes. Can either and both of you tell us about your first crush, what you remember, what that story was?
Do you want to go first, Leah?
Sure. So I remember quite distinctly, actually, it was my first boyfriend. I was in year 7 and he was in year 6, so a little bit
Cougar.
controversial. I know.
The lady.
And he was this tiny little skater dude. Like he had the blonde hair, like the kind of long with the undercut. Like,
oh yeah,
really?
Yeah. I was quite partial to those too.
Yeah, and he was just like the coolest kid in school, and I was so into him, and we were together in inverted commas, and that basically meant that sometimes when we walked past each other, we would smile. Now and again, I think we may have held hands once or twice, and then actually. This was over a 2-week period. Like it was a really long relationship. So we went to a local dance, actually. I grew up in the Yarra Valley. So, small country town. And we went to a dance and he got somebody to come up to me and break up with me.
Oh my God.
What?
I know. And
at a country dance, the nerve.
What a turd.
And then I cried, and so he came and got back together with me, and we went and had a little dance, and we had what was my first kiss. It was a peck on the lips.
Oh, nice.
So that was huge. It was a really, really big moment for me, and a few days later at school, he got someone else to come up and break up with me.
Deary me.
So it was...
That's why
Sorry.
you don't date younger men, Leah, for God's sake.
I still haven't learned.
Not West.
I know.
Oh, so that's a pattern, is it, Leah? That started there and then it's continued?
Look,
How old
it's
is
a pattern
Joey?
that has re-emerged. It has re-emerged recently.
Brilliant. I love it. What about you, Harry? What was your first crush?
My first crush. I was trying to think about this. I think the first teenage crush where you just like stay at home at night crying because they don't love you type of stuff was like, I think I was in like year 11 or 12. I think it was year 11. And because I didn't really have any friends at school, traditionally, it was just sort of like getting by. And then this one guy, like, I don't know, decided to want to be my friend. He thought it was kind of funny. And then so I just had obviously the biggest crush in the world on him because it was just the first person to really pay me attention. And it was like, he was just like this straight dude who just like did whatever and like sometimes would take me like to tennis or something. But I was like fully in love with him, but it was such an unrequited crush. But that was probably my first crush.
Nice.
I think. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I had crushes on everyone, but I just don't really remember them.
I know, that's the thing. There are so many.
Yeah.
Unrequited
that
crushes.
first one.
Pardon, what was
Hard
that?
to pinpoint the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm sure I had like lots of feelings for boys at certain points that like, you know, pretty much showed me the way of how to be gay. But that was the first one that I remember like writing in my diary, like crying along to like Linkin Park type stuff, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Just like every time like he'd drop me off after a hang, my heart would drop and then I'd be like, I want to run away and never say goodbye. Just angsty teenage bullshit. You know, it was ridiculous. So that was definitely a crush. It definitely hurt. And I've been falling for unattainable straight men ever since.
Oh, Harry.
Oh, who hasn't?
I know.
Oh, yeah, good answer, Leah.
Okay. So, yeah, you touched on that you were in a relationship briefly with your first crush. So what was your... Okay, so in most of the podcasts I talk about like high school relationships kind of being like training wheels, like they're our prepping for adultdom and actually having serious relationships as adults. So do either of you have any stories or recall how you got into your training wheel relationship?
Oh.
They're both thinking really hard.
I reckon, like, for me, because, like, I didn't lose my virginity until I was 20. I didn't have my first kiss till I was just before 20. Like, I didn't have any... There was just no options for, like, training wheels in terms of, like, me growing up. So for me, it was, like, becoming 20 and then moving to Melbourne and then accessing any of the gay dating sites that were available at the time, which was, like, websites and not apps because I'm so old, and just, like, diving into the deep end of, like, the dick pool of Melbourne and just really seeing what my feelings were going to take hold of, because I had no idea. So my training was like this immersive summer experience when I was 20 and just moved to Melbourne and didn't know what I was doing, just like batting my way through a cock forest, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Where were you living before, Harry? You moved to Melbourne?
I grew up in Coffs Harbour in New South Wales.
Oh, cool. So why the move to Melbourne? Just because?
Well, it was like a homophobic shithole and I had to get the fuck out of there. And so I moved around to different places. I lived in Sydney for a little bit, Brisbane, like Newcastle, all around. And then when I came to Melbourne, I was like, oh, this city shits over literally every other city I've been to so far. So I'll just stay here, I guess. And it's been 12 years.
Wow.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And it's nice that you were able to find a place that you felt welcomed in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so would you say Coffs Harbour, is that where you're from?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the reason why you were the Virgin Mary until you were 20, is that correct?
Absolutely.
So it's their fault.
I mean, like, the only, like, according to, like, the websites I was accessing, the only, like, gay people at the time in Coffs Harbour were these, like, old dudes who went and lived on ranches and stuff. Hey, Joey.
Who was that, Leah?
Yeah.
So, yes, I know. I was like, this is a pretty good example of a relationship gone well, is that I'm in the midst of a podcast and he is delivering me coffee. So the younger man has worked out at this point.
Keep up. Good on you, younger man.
He was very good. He came in with a mask and everything.
Yeah.
Well done.
I know.
That was amazing. That was like you've trained this respectful houseboy.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, caffeine, you've got to have it delivered.
Totally.
Absolutely. Or make it yourself, as I do. There's nothing wrong with making it yourself, like the crystals of Nescafe basically.
So we don't have a younger man to bring us coffee.
Exactly. Not all this can pin down a young little concubine.
Okay, this has just turned into a pylon.
Not at all. I absolutely commend you, my love. You found a good one.
He is a very good one.
Concubine, every time she's over here, she has the first coffee ready to go.
I'm so blessed. Thank you, Blossom. I'm so grateful. I am.
Anyway.
Oh, hello. Best offer I've had in a long time. Thanks,
shit.
Blossom.
Okay, so now that we have kind of delved a little bit into Harry's from Coffs Harbour to Melbourne experience, could you further talk on, Harry, about maybe your first love?
Yeah. First love. So my first relationship I got into, I was 27, I believe. I was a little kid that was like always loved the idea of love. I was basically raised on Disney films and all that sort of bullshit. So you have this idea of what you're after, but like as a gay kid, it's just like, oh, I can't hold that boy's hand and walk through the streets. Like that doesn't work for me. So I always wanted to be in love, but I didn't know what, like, it's sort of just like that transparent dangling carrot that you're always reaching for. And it's just always out of reach. It's just like, I didn't know what to do with it. And then I got it and I was like, oh, now what do I do with this carrot? Like I was in this relationship that I thought I wanted to be in. I thought it was with someone that I loved, but like there were all these things that kept going wrong and things that I would like just like dismiss. Like I'd let a lot of things slide because it was my first time I'd been in a relationship. I didn't know how I was supposed to be. I didn't know how to be in love. And then it didn't go very well and he didn't treat me very well and I didn't end very well. So it taught me a lot of things about like how not to feel, what not to think and what not to put up with, and sort of like the expectations of what I'm after was a really good benchmark for that, because it's basically a whole list of what I don't want. And then now I know that. So then moving forward, I can be like, no, I've been down this road before. This song sounds familiar. I don't want that.
Well, that's really good that you've so switched on with the first relationship.
Yeah.
You were able.
It took a lot of time and reflection. Like it was like years out following where I was just like, okay, I feel good enough about this to sort of decompress what this was. And now I never want that again. And that's really good to know.
And that's good because that's a deal breaker. You're creating your deal breakers, really.
Totally. And like through that, like I've sort of learned that like relationships aren't really for me. Like I'm not really the kind of person who works in relationships. It's not really what I'm after. I just thought that I wanted that from all those years of being told that love is like the pinnacle of what you should be achieving in life. And then like I worked so hard for that and then I finally got it. And it was like not that good. And then turns out like independence and creative control over one's own life is far more fulfilling. So now that's my focal point in life, is sort of finding a husband and some dick kids.
Yeah. I think another question before we get to you, Leah, on the same question about first love and training with relationships and whatnot. And feel free to say, Carla, fuck off, I'm not answering this, Harry. Like, feel free. From a gay perspective, did Disney make you feel a bit isolated because you were not represented as a little kid in those stories? Do you mind just unpacking that a little bit for us?
No, of course. Yeah, definitely. Like pretty much everything that I like consumed culture-wise in the 90s growing up was like everything was so heteronormative, so it was just really alienating in that like there were these things that I loved and I was like, yeah, I love these. And you get to the 8 to 9 or 10 when you start like realizing that your feelings aren't being portrayed on TV and in movies, and like, why aren't these boys holding hands? Like, why is it just boys and girls? And then you realize that every gay character you come across in media in the 90s is like a joke sidekick or dying of AIDS. And it's like, oh, I'm one of them, but I want to be one of these little kids in these movies that are holding hands and being in love. And it's like, so then therefore I grew up and I'm completely just told by everything around me that I don't belong in this part of the world. What I am is like the scummy version that's represented in the media, because that's how we were like treated at the time. And so that was really horrible. And so it's like, it's really difficult growing up sort of with this like really romantic, kind heart. Because I think I was a very happy kid before I got all broken by the world. But I was always like sunshine and lollipops and Pollyanna, and I want to hold hands and skip through things. And I love Disney films like that. Like when there's like a well-made love movie, like my heart soars. But then it's like I'm a teenager with all these feelings and nowhere to put them. So like every day at school, you know, I'd like look around and see like little kids just like not even thinking about it, just like mindlessly holding hands as they sit under a tree during recess or whatever. And these are all the little things that kids are afforded to, and their crushes and how they pass notes to their crushes. And they talk about just like, this girl likes this boy. And that's just a whole part of school that I wasn't afforded the luxury of being involved in. And so I'd always just like be sad that I couldn't do any of this because I wasn't represented in any of the things that I loved. And it's like, it was really unfair.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Yeah, and I find it really curious that in this day and age, the world we now live in, Disney's still stuck on that princess meets the prince and lives happily ever after crap.
Well, they're shifting, which is really good.
Relationships.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about that, Harry? Tell me.
Well, I've actually written a lot about Disney's relationship with women and men and everything like that. So they used to be all about the fairy tale thing. And in the last few years, I think they've really started. Obviously, Disney's like this giant company that kind of owns part of the world, like Coke. Like it's one of those ones that just has its fingers in the planet. So I feel like they can only do things at a snail's pace, but they've started shifting things with like the whole like idea of true love's kiss saving you or whatever, like with Frozen, how it was all about the sister relationship, and there's Princess and the Frog, which was all about like this woman wanting her career. And mostly all the princess stories since like for the last like 10 years have been about something that is more attainable than like love. Like love isn't the be all and end all of everything. It's not the focal point of these stories. It happens sometimes, but it's not the driving force, which I think is so much better, especially something like Frozen. Like, of course your sister's going to be your one true love over some dude who you just met on a boat. Like, that makes sense. Like, tell kids that. That's way more realistic. Like, don't just fall for the first guy who picks you up at the ball. Like, it's so ridiculous. And it's so cool that that's actually shifting. But, it does take a really long time. I mean, like, everyone was going crazy because that Beauty and the Beast remake had a gay scene at the end. And it was like 2 seconds of screen time for queer people. So there was half the people being like, that's so offensive. Like, it's only like 2 seconds of screen time. But I'm like, fucking baby steps, man. There wasn't even like the mention of like a gay person previously. Like, let this guy fall into a closet, come out and like dance with a guy on the dance floor. I don't give a shit. It's 2 seconds of screen time. In 10 years time, we'll have a whole goddamn movie. Like,
yes.
Like any step towards the future of like where I think it should be going, any step is a step in the right direction, I think.
Correct.
I think that's
so even if it's moving slowly, it's moving, and that is good enough for me.
Oh, brilliant, Harry.
Excellent.
I think that's a lovely lens to have on things. It sounds like you're quite optimistic in your outlook on the world, even though you've had the scars along the way, which is a delight to see.
Absolutely. Scars just remind you how you feel, you know. Papa Roach said it best.
That's it. Thank you, Harry, for sharing that. That was fantastic.
Yeah, beautiful.
Leah, can you unpack maybe if you had some training wheel relationships before you got to your first love, and how did that shape your worldview on love?
Well, I think I had my first love probably quite early, but I think that love develops though too, doesn't it? It's like what you call love at an early age is very different to what you call love, I guess, once you've been through a number of those relationships. So I feel like I've had my fair share of like love in a very comfortable kind of relationship that maybe wasn't with someone who was the right person for me, but it just was kind of worked to a certain extent. And then I've had the really destructive love. I've had a lot of that. And and really, really kind of horrible relationships as well in there that have, you know, been treated badly and been gaslit and all of those fun things along the way. But I feel like kind of like what Harry said before too, the learning from it and saying that's not what I want. I feel like relationships have been really useful to me to get to where I am now, where I feel like I know what I want, and being really clear on that and learning how to value myself has been probably the biggest learning curve of all. And just
it does come back to value.
Definitely.
It does come back to value,
Self-worth.
especially with the destructive stuff.
Yeah.
Working out where your values are, where your boundaries are, then set you in better stead to attracting people that are not going to treat you like a piece of shit. So that's really important.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like nothing solidifies your sense of self more so than getting treated terribly and never wanting to get there again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And teaching the next person how to treat you.
Exactly.
I had a period of time, like not that long ago, where it was a number of years where I was not feeling good about myself, and I just went from one thing to another, where everybody just, of course, reinforced that for me, and it was just the proof is there over and over again, and it was such a relief to get out of that cycle. But it's a hard one. It's
well done, you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a hard one.
It is hard.
It's an easy default to get into.
Yeah.
And once you are shown by your surroundings that, yes, what I think about myself is true, I'm not valuable because I've got these experiences continuously coming at me, it is a really hard whirlpool to get out of.
Absolutely.
And that sort of ties in with what we've discussed in a previous interview and podcast about the life trap situation, that we end up with these certain patterns that can reoccur in our lives and reaffirm that low self-worth, so low self-esteem, until we recognise it and we start working on it and start making those choices and deal breakers and boundaries. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
exactly. Unless like you've been through the whole scope of feelings, really, like from top to bottom, you won't really know where you want to sit on the scale. Like otherwise it's just going to be really dull. You've got to fluctuate a bit to find out where you fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So could you two tell me if either one of you believe, and I think Harry, you kind of touched on this before, but do you believe in happy ever after, and what does that look like for both of you?
Well, I mean, I think happy ever after when I was younger is different to my happy ever after now. You know what I mean? Like, when I was younger, like I said before, like all I wanted was that, like that idea of what I think we were told we wanted was like the partner and the kids and the job and this life of stability. And then you sort of get older and realize that that's bullshit. And then like the world goes into a pandemic and you really reassess what you want out of the one life you're given in this world. And so like for me, like my happily ever after is more just like, I want to like live out the rest of my life, like living with my friends and the people that make me happy. And if I find a partner, then so be it. But essentially I just want to be surrounded by the people that I love. And my ideal retirement is like a share house that me and my mates, who are like left over when we're 60, all just get together and like live out kind of like Golden Girls type situation.
Yes, the Golden Boys.
Yeah, totally. And like, I just think that'd be really sick. Golden kids, like there's no need to gender these things. But that's like my ideal happily ever after isn't with one person, because I just don't see how one person can possibly make you happy forever and ever until the end of time. That seems crazy. So I like to spread myself through a lot of people as much as I can.
And can I please reserve a bedroom in that?
Yeah, me too, please.
Oh, absolutely.
Golden People House.
My ideal is to get like an actual, you know, there's retirement communities where there's like say 8 units and in the middle there's like a court and like a pool and stuff. They've got like a rec centre. Well, if me and all my mates and whoever else wants gets every single one of those units, then technically the entire complex is ours.
Fun there would be. It would be amazing.
With all
it's like inheriting a Byron Bay unit or something. It was fantastic. Oh, it's so good. We're going to have like our own social discos in the pool. No one can tell us drinking or stop listening to like Cardi B at 2 a.m. No one. The place is ours.
Yeah, what at 18 years old would be great.
I mean, that's pussy right there.
So good. What about you, Leah? Happy ever after? Do you believe in it? How do you see that? Let us know.
No, and I don't think I ever have. And I think that my perspective on a relationship is like, I guess what I figured out that I want is I want like a best friend and a teammate. And so long as that continues to be the case and that's the way we're working, then that is awesome. And if that is till the end of my days, then awesome. But also, I don't think that it exists without work as well. And I don't want a fantasy either. I want someone that I'm growing with and developing, and that means hard times as well, and it means supporting each other through it and being there. And if that's there, then that's awesome.
Fantastic.
That's actually such a good point. I love that. Like, it's totally true. because we sort of like idealize these things we want in our mind, and it's like, why would you try to work yourself towards this fantasy? Like, fantasies aren't real. Like, everything is work. Like, in order to achieve the fantasy you want, you have to work at it for ages, and then the most of the time will be work, and that's actually the benefit of it. You don't want to find someone that's perfect, that's going to suit you, and your life is like, who wants to settle down with a perfect life at the age of 30 something? You've got decades to go. There's heaps of work to go.
We put the emphasis, like, we would never think that our friends are these perfect relationships. Like, there are things that we put energy into and we expect to get stuff back, and we stay with it as long as it's working and is functional. And I think that that kind of, I like that, the idea of that extending to romantic relationships as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, I'd like to get to the end of, say, like, you get to like 70, and I want to look back and be like, I had like 6 really good relationships, you know, like whether it's 6 months, a year or whatever, like, rather than like, man, I've had one relationship for 40 years and it's been really hard. I didn't fuck a single person outside of that. So I'm really glad I had sex with this one person for 40 fucking years and not had any problems and no dramas. And now let's just go to the grave. Like, I'm like, I had all these great times with these great people, and they suited me in that way. Like, I think that's a better way to look at it than just like, really glad we're in this prison cell together, you know?
Correct.
It's really refreshing. So obviously you guys are in Melbourne at the moment, and Harry, you're from New South Wales. Are you from Melbourne, Leah?
I am.
Okay, cool. So you're from Melbourne?
Originally,
yes.
Yeah,
Lainey's from Melbourne, and I'm from Adelaide. I've lived around the world and interstate and whatever. It's so refreshing to hear these perspectives, because Adelaide is quite
different beast, isn't it?
So my friends, and I'm a culprit of this too. I got engaged at 21. What the fuck? But my friends started getting married at about 22.
Oh my God.
And then I look back at that age and I go, shit. If I did that, who knows how long that marriage would have lasted anyway. But I look at my friends that are in these marriages and they found their love and look, everyone's different. That's fine. I can only speak on my experience. But being the single one, or the one that hasn't gotten married, doesn't have kids, in my mid-30s, and being in South Australia, it's very interesting. Like, the assumption for me, if I get into a relationship with someone from Adelaide, 90% of them will have children. 90% of them will. Yes. But
oh my God.
In the other states, that is not the case. And that is so fucking refreshing, because I know what it's like to be in a relationship with somebody who has wonderful children, but there is baggage that comes with their ex, with their just a whole fuck ton of shit you have to navigate. So the fact that you guys speaking like this, it just reminds me that it is South Australia with that little conservative, you must be married by this time, you must be popping out kids by this time. It brings my heart and soul joy. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Mine also. Same deal.
It's so interesting because, like, it's so fun. I forget that everywhere is like so. But Melbourne's such like a little green bubble here. We forget that, like, if you leave it for a second, I mean, we haven't been able to leave literally our homes for 6 months. But when you leave for a second, you forget that the rest of the country is quite conservative and weird. Like, one of my best mates, she loves the idea of having children, but she's never really in relationships. But she wants that, and so she was like, one of her friends was like, his mum had him too young, so he was raised in a share house, you know, in the late 90s, and so she likes the idea of just like getting pregnant one day and just raising a baby in a share house with a bunch of her friends. And I'm like, that's way better to me. It's just sort of like finding out what you want, and if like just like, hey, I want a kid and I want to like live with people I love, but I don't want this thing, so how do I work that out? And like I like the idea of people, like young people these days, not just submitting to what they told they should need as the achievable or what in life. It's just like, oh, I'm just going to work around this into whatever suits me. And that's kind of cool. It's like there's people have so many different versions of where they see their lives going and what they want out of it. And it's not the traditional, like, family in a picket fence situation.
Yeah, and I think in Melbourne and Sydney, from my understanding, people don't judge you for that. If that was something, Harry, that I said to people in South Australia, well, I'm in my mid-30s, I really want to be a mum, but I don't have a partner or whatever, and I want to raise a kid in a share house, people would be like, what the fuck's wrong with you?
Yeah, that is very true. It's
that's what I mean. We're stuck here and we completely forget that everyone else is like that.
Which, again, gives people the license to actually figure out who they are, what they want in a more supportive environment than having to stick to a certain, parameters of South Australia.
Absolutely.
So do I. I was just about to say, not actually bagging Adelaide, but it is actually based on our experiences. Yeah. I know I've mentioned this in previous podcast, that, quite often the conversation with somebody that I meet that I don't know is, oh, so you married? No, is my answer. Oh, have you got kids? No. Then the eyes start to glaze over and they're like, oh my God, I don't even know what to say. You're weird. And it's like, well, actually, no, it's just the goalposts in my life changed and they're different. Yeah.
And that should be okay.
Yeah.
You should be able to shift your goalposts, you know what I mean? Like, if you're not, then there's just there's no variation in life. If you're still obtaining for the same thing you were looking for 20 years ago, then you haven't evolved in any way in your mind, your body, or your life. And that's crazy. I couldn't imagine living such a stable life. That's so boring to me.
Yeah. Us artists don't seem to have that desire for that stable, quiet life, do we?
No, we love instability. We crave it. We want to hook it to our veins, man.
The drama.
It's interesting.
We live for the applause.
Just on that note that you were saying before, Harry, I was speaking to an ex-colleague of mine who is a retired basketball player, and we were talking on this fact of stability, and we are so used to having to reinvent, having to sell ourselves, having to put ourselves out there. Obviously sport's different to arts, but similar but different, in the fact that you don't know when your next contract's coming up, you don't know when the next work's coming from, so you reinvent yourself. And I think that's part of maybe why I'm yet to get into that relationship that lasts a lifetime and have kids, is because I'm used to adapting and being fluid and moving through things when I have to. And having that stability actually freaks me out a little bit.
Me too.
Oh,
absolutely.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's weird because, like you said, instability really does, that kind of anything erratic in this world sort of triggers the art within us and we do something with it, you know what I mean? I just don't think there's a lot of art that comes from complacency and stability. No one's I'm so happy, I'm just going to create all these things I'm feeling inside. And it's I don't want to see a picture of your sunflower in the backyard. That's not interesting to me. I want to see something raw and real. And if you're not experiencing the full spectrum of emotions, I just don't think you can really harness a lot of things, and it just gives you more ammo to do stuff with. So instability sort of helps with that. As erratic as it is, we never know when we're getting fucking paid. We don't know when the next job's coming, but there's also that kind of thrill where it's just oh God, I could die tomorrow, let's see what I create. And it's sort of that's what fuels us, that the erraticism of life gives us life and gives us fuel to do what we want to do. And instability, stability is it's normal, and I couldn't think of anything worse than being boring, and regular. No,
I had a little experience of that. The sort of significant, almost long-standing man that's been in and out of my life at various times. He has had a number of children who I love dearly, like my own. But I tried the whole, I'm going to be here and support you and not do many gigs. And I was going crazy. And he didn't even seem to acknowledge that this was a huge thing for me to even try, let alone appreciate the fact that I was, trying to cook some dinner for him and the kids and, just trying to be the domestic goddess, even though it went against every grain in my body, because I just wasn't being my genuine self. What?
Absolutely. And that's totally fair. People from different walks of life, don't find it very hard to sort of understand when someone else doesn't come from the same perspective. From his perspective, it's just man, she really just doesn't want to cook food for me and my kids, but you're just I don't do this ever. This is a really big deal. Why don't you see this? I'm not comfortable. And they're just you're not going to melt. It's two battery heads. You're never going to get together, because it's just it's just so frustrating because people just don't understand.
Yeah.
So
I think that's fine.
Yeah, thanks, fine. Lovely. I think so. Yeah. I didn't. Yeah. I wondered at the time, but yeah, I'm cool with.
No, I think it's great. Don't make food for kids. Just do whatever you want to do.
I wasn't from lack of trying. I'm just a bit crap in the kitchen these days. I think I was better when I was younger.
God, if I had $1.
So let's talk about dating a little bit. So in the show, obviously I talk about, like I said before, from first crushes to dick pics and everything in between, what I thought was happy ever after. So there's a chapter, as you know, Leah, because you came to see the show, there's a chapter about dick pics. Now, there's going to be two different perspectives here, and I want to hear both of them, okay? So I'll give you my perspective. My experience has been we won't even be talking about anything sexual and on online dating, which I'm not on anymore, and everybody can do whatever they like, but it just wasn't for me. So one of the reasons I stopped doing online dating was the collage and plethora of dick pics that I would receive that were not asked for, and we weren't even talking about anything sexual. Leah, can you start us off with your experience, if you've experienced something along those lines? And then Harry, can you tell us from a gay perspective how that all unfolds and how that all works or doesn't work or whatever?
Educate us.
How many you've sent?
Fucking
Did they have a pretty bow?
They always come with a jingle.
I have received them. I didn't spend very long doing online dating, so I feel like I've probably escaped the worst of it. My thing has always just been like, even when it's guys I'm seeing and they just so desperately want to send me a picture of their dick, and I've always found that odd. Like even when I say no, I don't, because I've had people actually ask if I wanted one, and my response being like, no, it's fine. And still just the insistence over and over. And it's always struck me as kind of funny, because I feel like it's for their own pleasure so much more than it is for mine. I have never requested one, and I have never wanted one. So
yeah, what is
that?
Absolutely. That's like, it's so funny because that seems to be the perspective from a lot of women I know on the receiving end of dick pics. Like, from the most part, the majority is just like, didn't ask for it, didn't really see it coming, why did you send it? It's such an odd flex, you know. But it's just like a whole different kettle of fish in the gay world, man. Like, we are so dick hungry. Like, honestly, it just doesn't, it's not even really a thing. Like, I remember being like younger, and it's like, you just got kind of get used to it, because it's almost like a rule. Like, it's really frustrating. I mean, there's a difference between dating online and like the sex apps. Like, Grindr is like a completely different ballfish to like Tinder or OkCupid, which are more like date based. But when you're on something like Grindr, where like the intention is to find some dick nearby and then get some dick in on, like, it doesn't really matter when people are sending them left, right, and like, it just, who cares? But it doesn't faze me. Like, I've never really asked for one. Like, I'll send them if people ask, but I'm not going to like, because I'm just going to assume that people think that I have one. Like, everyone's got a dick. That's why we're all here. Like, I'm just going to assume you're not on a gay dating website to like, I don't know, press your dick nub against like someone else. Like, it just, obviously we're going to have a dick and we're going to use it. It doesn't bother me what it looks like. So it's just like, I don't care, but it's all the time. And sometimes even like in the gay world, just be like, hey, how's it going? It's like, yeah, no worries. And it's just like, bam, like, whoa, okay, 0 to 10. I can work with that, but it's just part of the nature.
Yeah. Right.
I just like, whenever because I like something looks weird, I don't really know I'm not going to get someone else to take it for me. I don't have like a boudoir or anything. So I just like, in the last like year or so, I just started taking a piss. So I now take funny pictures of my dick and like different situations and make a joke about it. So when I send it off to someone on Grindr, I'm just like, there's this one where I got like a little Pokemon skull and I put on the tip, and I'm just like, hey, here's my Cubone. How about a Marowak? And it's great because like, I think it's funny. I get to alleviate that stress I have of someone not liking my dick, and I get to make a joke out of it. And it cuts down the feed. So I'll either get like half the responses are going to be like, that's hilarious and weird, what's your deal? Or the other half is just block. And so it really just halves the fishing field. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was just very interested to hear what the gay perspective was, because I know from speaking to a few of my gay friends, they were very much like, it's a different thing than
you know, a straight couple, a guy sending a dick without even being asked for one. Like it's a different
completely different field. And I think it's because like everyone in like the gay community, like they're all like, they all have dicks, they all want dicks, but like with like female male gender diversion, it's just like it's quite confronting because it's different body parts to your own. You're not used to seeing it all the time, and it's weird. Like it's a different. There's just a shift. There's a massive shift there. And I do wish that men would be more respectful towards women, because I've heard some horrible stories about what men slide into women's DMs, and it's not cute at all. At all. I personally wouldn't mind, because I love it when people slide filthy things into my DMs. But most of the feedback I've gotten from friends is that they don't enjoy the experience. So I wish men would calm the fuck down with their weird dick pics sending outs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%. Like, hey, it's a completely different ball game when you're in the moment, you're getting naked together. That's a different, like, bring on the dick then, that's fine. But I don't need a preview. Like, when I want to see it, you'll know. And it'll be in person, so it can be realised effectively. Not just
exactly
I'm looking at that's not doing anything for my insides, outsides, or anything, you know?
Exactly. Like, no one goes to the movies and watches a trailer of the film they're about to watch beforehand. You know what I mean? Like, that's so stupid. You know what you're in for. You don't need a 2-minute long teaser. You're just like, I'm going to sit here and see it in 20 minutes anyway. Like, why are you showing me this? It's so unnecessary.
Correct. Okay, so let's step out of the dicks and talk about... Sorry, Harry.
Haven't we suffered enough? Jesus.
And talk about heartbreak. So have either of you been heartbroken, and how do you get through the heartbreak? Can you give our listeners some tips? No pun intended.
Leah, you go first.
Oh, God, I don't know. Yes, I have been very, very heartbroken a number of times. And yeah, I don't know how to say how I get out of it, really. That's the thing. Like, I probably dwell in it for a while and then do the classic, like, I'm going to get fit and be awesome and show them what they've lost, you know, or something really cliche like that.
I love that.
I don't know. Joey and I got together when I was in the midst of heartbreak, so that certainly helped. That was a great.
So your plan worked.
So how
the plan worked.
You, Leah, how did Joey woo you?
You know, we joke because this is going to get serious for a moment, but I have chronic pelvic pain and and always thought I had endometriosis, and am making a documentary around that at the moment. But anyway, I came in. We met actually in a rehearsal for a show, and I came in on like day one, and I said to the director, I've actually, like, I'd had an ovarian cyst burst the night before, and so I was still in a lot of pain. I was like, just letting you know I'm in pain. And he came up to me and he said, do you have some form of endometriosis? And I was like, oh my God, a man who knows what this is. And so we always joke that if he hadn't said that, we wouldn't be together.
I'm keen to see this documentary. Yeah. Sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's a very widespread problem.
Yeah, very much so. I've lived with it for many, many years.
Have you? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Many people who have had no answers.
Yeah, I know.
Factory answers.
Yeah, exactly. There are no great answers. Like, they just don't exist. So, yeah. But I mean, and that's a huge, you know, just also to give Joey his credit as a partner too. He's been so extraordinary with me, considering that's a huge part of my life. I deal with pain all of the time, and he's an amazing, amazing support. So,
man, that's lovely. And I do recall talking about pain being part of your beautiful show that where we met you this year, and like finish season. So that was 5.
It was a kind of scary last minute inclusion, I feel like. You know, Harry actually kept encouraging me to put it in, and I was really nervous.
Leah was so nervous about it, but I think, like, it's such an interesting topic. I mean, for me as a male, like, it's insane to me how many friends or how many women I know experience these kind of problems, like chronic pain, some form of endometriosis, and it's just not really that discussed, like I talk about almost everything with my friends, and then this is something I've only heard about recently in the last few years. And so we were writing about all these different subjects for Molly Grubs, and we got to the end and I was like, we need a little bit more time to kill. And I was like, Leah, I just really think you should talk about this. Like, it's just such a personal and deeply personal thing. And yeah, she opened up about it, and it ended up being one of my favorite parts of the whole play is like when she starts devolving and screaming about this sort of stuff. It's really gutturally painful because it is like essentially like it's the first time I've seen a woman screaming about this sort of stuff on stage like that, and it's exhausting, it's painful, and I thought it was just so fucking incredible. I was so proud of Leah when we like were doing all this stuff because it's a hard thing to talk about, you know.
But has been actually for me one of the most rewarding parts of it too is having that response from people in the audience actually really connecting and saying, oh my gosh, that's my experience as well. And because it is a taboo subject, it's something that we all just deal with in silence, in private, and I mean, which is the problem. And that's, I mean, I guess now has become my mission is to somehow do whatever I can to get it out there.
Well done, good girl.
And having you guys as such a supportive creative unit together, Leah and Harry, I think that's fantastic, Harry, that you were so supportive of Leah and gave her a pedestal to stand on to be able to give that to the people.
Absolutely. That was the whole point of our show, was to talk about the problems that we were having that we didn't get to voice that often. And so it felt correct to throw it all on the table. Like, let's see how many more problems do we have that we can cram into this 50-minute show. We're already racing through the whole, like, full spectrum of things, but, like, let's just throw in some more.
Yeah, I think it was great.
It was absolutely amazing. It was really good.
Oh, thank you.
I hope it's coming.
We hope to be able to do it again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to do it again one time. Like,
posted. Yeah. Yes, please.
We will.
Absolutely.
So, to end off today, could you give our listeners some parting words of wisdom in regards to love, dating, all that stuff? Any parting words of wisdom that you can give our listeners?
Well, I reckon, my advice is going to be very particular to me and my point of view in the world, which is not going to reach a lot of people. But for me, I think the biggest advice I can give for anyone looking for love or looking for a relationship is to figure out what you're after, what makes you happy, and work towards that. And there's only so few things that can survive. Like, it's sort of a shift in conversation. You have to be honest with the person you're wanting to move on this journey with the entire way. And if there's any issues, work with them. If it's not working, don't force it. Like, you're 5 years down the track, you're just like, man, I'm really hoping this pays off soon. Like, get the fuck out of there and start again. There's plenty more fucking fish in the sea. There are so many fish. Don't settle for bullshit. You've only got one life. Do what makes you happy and work with that, is my advice.
And don't be anything other than what you are. Like, if someone doesn't like you for who you are, then they are not the right person.
Right.
Like,
exactly. Don't change who you are for someone. That's crazy.
If you're too much for someone, then they are not the right person for you, because they're
not enough for you. It's not you're too much for them. They're just not enough for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Just be true to yourself.
Thank you so much for the time, guys. You have been excellent.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. This was so much fun.
Yeah, we've loved every millisecond of it. It's been great. It's been beautiful too.
Yeah, it's so nice to see and talk to some fresh people. Usually it's just the pigeon in the backyard. I've called it Jackie because I'm not quite sure of its gender.
I've got one that I call Ernie, because it could be a boy or a girl. So Ernest.
Exactly.
Yeah. Ernie if it's a boy. And he's very excitable about his food. So he's like, oh, and he flaps his wings around, the other one's away. So I called him Ernie. He's very
I love
it.
Yeah.
See, we do the best with what we can. Nature is such a wonder. It's a true wonder.
Much love to you guys. Thank you so much.
Much love.
Mwah. Thanks so much, guys. See you later.
Bye.
The Catch-a-Lorette, with friends near and far, from heartache to catfish and sex toys. The Catch-a-Lorette and friends. See you next time, if you dare.
Bank of the West is offering the 1% for the planet checking account. It gives back to the planet at no cost to you, and there's no monthly service charge with any deposit per statement. Only from Bank of the West. Learn more at bankofthewest.com/1%. Additional conditions apply. Member FDIC.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.